Hello, this is George Hutton, and you're listening to the Mind Persuasion Podcast. Today we continue our study of money brain. For more information, please visit mindpersuasion.com/money-brain. In today's podcast, we'll be talking about the self-aware mind. This may be a bit difficult to wrap your mind around, but we believe that this concept is very important and very critical to being able to make as much money as you want. And this podcast will deal with the issue of our self-awareness, the very existence of our consciousness. We'll present a model that can help. When we say model, we mean a way to think about something. This doesn't need to be scientifically proven or defended. For example, once upon a time, a bunch of scientists were looking at a tightly compacted collection of particles. This solid-state physics problem was giving them grief. They wanted to predict the future behavior of the system, but in order to do that, they needed to understand all the characteristics of each and every particle in the system. It was way too complicated for even the fastest computers to handle, but then one scientist got an idea. Instead of treating the system of a bunch of particles all crammed in very tightly, why not treat the system as a collection of a few holes? As the particles would move around, so would the holes. The characteristics of the holes were simple: zero mass, zero spin, zero charge, etc. And there weren't very many of them. They tried it out and it worked. Now, was it really a system of holes? I suppose, but that's not the point. They came up with a model to help understand and measure the system. So this model of our self-awareness may be technically just a metaphor, but you'll find it very helpful in your quest to make more money. Flow state. Psychologists have long been interested in this highly sought-after but very delicate mental state. When one is performing at a very high level yet with very little conscious input, kind of like being unconscious while doing something extremely complicated, usually competitive sports or unrehearsed musical performances. Now, let's imagine you were watching TV and decided to make a sandwich. It's possible to make a sandwich in the flow state, but it's not that interesting. Most of the things we do more or less on autopilot. We drive to work in the flow state. We talk to our friends in the flow state. We do laundry in the flow state. Only this flow state isn't so interesting since we are doing very easy things. The flow state studied by psychologists is interesting because the behavior is very, very highly technical behavior that few people are capable of doing. Another way to look at this true flow state is that it is humans operating on autopilot with behaviors that are very far above our factory settings. Any goof can do laundry or make a sandwich. Only a few humans are skilled enough to play a world-class set of tennis in the near magical flow state. Another way to describe the flow state is autopilot behavior that takes a long time to develop through plenty of trial and error learning. Stages of learning. You may have heard of these 4 stages of learning. We'll cover them here briefly. Unconscious incompetence, when you suck but you don't know that you suck. Conscious incompetence, when you know that you suck. Conscious competence, when you don't suck but you aren't exactly that great either. You need most of your conscious mind to do the skill. The final level is unconscious competence, when you are pretty good and you don't need your conscious mind. This is when the skill is at the autopilot level. For most of us, this is the stuff we do at our jobs: walking, chewing gum, making toast, driving to work, maybe juggling, etc. Super advanced robots. Let's do a mental experiment. Take anything you've learned to the point of unconscious competence. In fact, let's take some flow state examples: boxing, tennis, martial arts, etc. Let's imagine a sufficiently advanced robot that can perform at the same level. It's not hard to imagine a time in the future when they can make a robot that would beat any pro tennis player or boxer, etc. They've already beaten the best Go player with a computer, which is considered to be the most advanced strategy game that exists. We can imagine robots performing all of these skills without the need for any kind of consciousness or self-awareness. Neurological studies and self-awareness. We have this idea that we, the part of us that we would call our self-awareness, sits between what happens out there in the world and our body's response. We see something happen, and we think about it for a split second and then decide how to respond. Sure, some things are automatic, like catching something that is unexpectedly tossed at us, but most things aren't, right? Turns out this model isn't that accurate. They can hook up people's brains to advanced devices that measure exactly when certain parts of their brain light up. And in most cases, it turns out that our conscious awareness happens last. Something stimulates our senses. Our body begins to respond. Only after the response has been started does our conscious minds get involved. The best description that comes from neurologists is that our consciousness is an after-the-fact storytelling device. Why in the world does this thing exist? What does this say about our free will? New instinct generator. Recall the 4 stages of learning. Any new skill, which we can now call a new instinct if it is trained to the point of not needing our consciousness or unconscious competence, must pass through our conscious training system. First, we find out about it. Then we carefully move it from conscious incompetence to conscious competence. Finally, once we practice it enough, it moves from conscious competence to unconscious competence. Once here at this level, it is a new instinct. This is a fantastic way to look at the role of our self-awareness as a tool to help us humans learn new instincts as we spread out all over the globe. Desire, instinct, outcome. This means that whatever we want must be obtainable with either self-programmed or genetic instincts. If you want to play a song on the piano, you must train it to the point of a new instinct. If you want to make a complicated cake, you've got to train it to the point of being a new instinct, so you can make it without needing to think about it. We can further suggest this is the main purpose of our free will, to choose which instincts we will train to the point of unconscious competence. Once they are trained to the point of unconscious competence, they become outcomes that only need a desire to make them happen, just like making a sandwich, just like driving to work. Decider and chooser. Every time a group of humans moved into a new environment, it took a while to figure out how to get food out of the ground or find out how to hunt what. They had to first figure out what skills they needed, and then they had to stumble around through trial and error until they figured it out. This is how all learning must happen. Sometimes you have a role model who can show you the ropes. This is what happens when we get a job at an existing company. So long as we have met the qualifications, they will train us. Once we are trained, we can work, and they don't have to look over our shoulder. Once we show competence at one level, they'll move us up and train us some more. Or, if you are working for a startup, you'll figure it out the old school way by trial and error. So long as you are pointing your learning to where the money is, and you keep trying and learning, you'll keep getting better. This is how people come up with the craziest inventions that make them millions. They just keep trying different combinations, they keep getting feedback, and their creative brains keep working overtime until they finally stumble on a winning combination. I'm George Hutton. Thank you for listening to the Mind Persuasion Podcast. For more information, please visit mindpersuasion.com/money-brain. I look forward to speaking with you again soon.